thank you all for coming here tonight. We'd like to start by thanking the Chazak family for everything they have done and for allowing us to use the space, no pun intended. And for bringing us together on this beautiful night.
Remind me to give you this microphone, please. Don't let me leave.
Ron and I would like to thank every individual on the board of Chazak for their time and effort in planning this beautiful event. A special shout out to Ms. Eleanor Dahan, who flew in to help plan this beautiful event. May she continue to do many more smachot and mitzvot. Amen. And lastly, to each and every single person sitting in this room, it's for your general and generous contribution that we are here today. With that, I'd like to pass the microphone to Rabbi Hagioff to introduce the esteemed guest of honor.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Awesome job. Beautiful job. Hi everyone. Bruchim habayim. Welcome to our amazing summer soiree. By the way, you all look amazing in white. You know, white is the color of purity, but it's also a color that comes out when all other colors pass through a prism. And so when you put all colors together, they make purity in white, and that's what each and every one of you represents this evening. Kol hakavod. I want to thank the Akakian family for their graciously giving us this beautiful, cool, amazing venue. The Malakan family for hosting. It was meant to be in there because of the rain. We had to change it, but it worked out beautifully. And of course, someone who does not want to be thanked, but we are obligated to thank her because without her, there would be no Chazak Great Neck, Shayna Sharifian. She puts her blood, she puts her tears, she puts her smiles, she puts her crazy organizational skills behind this organization, classes, programs, events. Shayna, we love you. And to Rachel Shirazadeh, you are a prize. We love you too. Friends, I am not the speaker this evening, but I have the distinct honor of introducing the amazing speaker, a good friend of mine. Just a quick background to my relationship with this amazing man and rabbi. A number of years ago, our speaker this evening was living in a country which you may have heard of called England, in a city called London. And he started an organization called Chazak. And it was doing incredibly well. And it still is. And then I got a phone call. I was driving, I remember. I'm going back a number of years now, 7, 8 years or something. And he said, "This is Shlomo Farhi." Is that Rabbi Lawrence Hagioff? I said, "Rabbi Farhi? Wow, what an honor." And he hadn't arrived in the United States yet. And he said, "Lawrence, I got to tell you something. This is a big secret, so please do not tell anyone, but I'm leaving England and I'm coming back to the United States." He said, "Do not tell anyone." So I put it on Facebook and Instagram and other social media sources. And he said, "I've got a position, hopefully, in a synagogue in New York. I cannot tell you which one." I tried to pry it out of him, but he wouldn't tell me. "But I also want to start Chazak in New York. And when I arrive, I want you to join my team." Now, I'd heard of Rabbi Farhi, but he wasn't as famous as he is now. So I listened, I said, "I'm flattered, I'm honored." I called a number of Rabbanim and people who knew him and know me. And I said, "Have you heard of Rabbi Farhi?" They said, "Of course we've heard of him." said, have you heard of this organization, Chazak? Of course we have. I said, I was working for a different organization in New York. And I said, he just told me he's probably moving to New York to work in a synagogue and open up Chazak New York. Should I leave my current position and work with him? And every single person I spoke to, my dear friends, said the same thing. No matter what you do, you want to hitch your wagon to this rabbi, because whatever he does is always an incredible success. And that's exactly what I did. I left my position and I joined him, and Baruch Hashem, although as soon as I joined, COVID began, Baruch Hashem, all min hashamayim, every single interaction, every single event, every single program that I've done with Rabbi Farhi has always been of the utmost excellence, and the person you see, and I can tell you because I'm behind the counter, the person you see speaking to you this evening is exactly who he is at home with his family, because I've been there many, many times, and who he is with his family and his friends and his community. It's the same person, a person who's selfless and loving, and a person who is just, as they say, a mensch. And so, it is my distinct honor to join us this evening to make this amazing summer soiree not just fun and enjoyable, but also to inspire us, to give us a lot of comfort and chizuk and chazak at this challenging time of Jewish history. But we are here because we know Yisrael Chai, and it's people like Rabbi Farhi who allow it to keep going, Baruch Hashem. Please put your hands together for our amazing speaker this evening, Rabbi Farhi.
Guidance.
There you go.
Thank you. Great Neck, do I love you? Look at this. It's unbelievable. I'm so impressed, first of all, by how beautiful this is, this event, this venue, the people. Everyone got all dressed up. Me and Lawrence and I, the only two people wearing dark suits as the rabbis. You got to be very careful, by the way. You want to go to a single event and have some girl start hitting on you when you're the rabbi. I'm very happy to be wearing a dark suit tonight. You don't know how many times I've had to dodge the kiss or the whatever. It's very, very awkward. So I'm really glad to not be wearing white tonight. And I'm also glad to see all of you dressed up in your purity. And it is my sincere wish that, I don't know if you call it that in this community, but that you find your nasib, that you find the one that's meant for you, whether it's here, whether it's anywhere else. But Be'ezrat Hashem, this hishtadlut, this effort to come out and have a great night together at this magnificent summer soiree and to learn Torah together should be a zechut for you, and bring that girl to find you, and bring that guy to find you, Be'ezrat Hashem, and not have it be a difficult matter to be able to achieve. Okay. Now for my favorite bit, teaching Torah. Let's get cracking. Our topic tonight is honesty. And my friends, this topic is a difficult one to be able to work with. And I'll tell you why. In the Torah, the commandment not to lie, where do we learn those words from? In the language of the Torah. Does anyone know, where do we learn that you should not lie? Where does it say that? Anyone? Nowhere. Well, that's a lie. Boom! Midvar, Sheker. I can't see anything because there's lights here. I don't think that was Rabbi Hajiov's voice. So, right, it wasn't, right? Was it? No, it wasn't. Okay, I literally can't see anything. Midvar, Sheker, Tirchak. From a word... No, it's fine. From a word of falsehood, tirchak, you should stay away. I remember once reading something really interesting about this. And that is that in every other mitzvah in the Torah tells you what to do. And then the Chachamim come along, and the Chachamim give you what's called a sayag, or a geder, which means a fence. So as an example, let's say the Torah tells you that a person should keep Shabbat. The Chachamim come along and say, listen, keep an extra minute before and a minute after, because you don't want to break Shabbat, okay? That extra bit, the staying away from the border, from the edge, from the cliff, that's not in the verse, that's not in the mitzvah, it's something which is added alongside. But seemingly when it comes to this mitzvah, the Torah deemed it necessary not to tell you, lo tishaker, don't lie, but rather, midvar sheker tirchak. From a word of falsehood, tirchak, stay far away. That distance, that social distancing, is built into the mitzvah itself. So if the Torah takes this mitzvah of all of the 613 so seriously that it asks you to stay far, far away, we have to understand what is the Torah teaching us and how should we be incorporating this message, these ideas in our lives. I want to point out something really interesting, because I believe that the trade-off of this mitzvah is an unbelievable reward. It's rare to find midvar sheker tirchak, stay away. But what's interesting is there's another verse that gives us the flip side of what happens when a person lives the honest life. Every day, at least twice in Shacharit, once in Mincha, we say, Karov Adonai lechol kore'av. God is close to all those who call out to Him. But then David HaMelech adds a qualifier to that. So when you call out to God, when you cry out to Hashem, when you need parnasah, or when you're lonely, or when you want to find a good job, or you want to have your father or mother or grandfather get better, or when you're sick and tired of the news that's coming from Israel, or when you're sick and tired of waiting for Iran to strike, what other nation in the world just sits there waiting for someone to bomb them? Only us. Only we have to do that. There's no other country that would be asked to do that. And if you're sick of that, and you want God to hear your prayers, what do you do to have God be close to your prayers? Karov Adonai lechol korav. Says the pasuk, lechol asher yikreuhu be'emet. To all those that call out to Him in truth. The ones that call out in truth, the ones that are truthful, that are truth sayers, those people God is close to, and He listens to their voice. I hope you are struck like I was by this unbelievable juxtaposition. In the Torah it says, stay far away from sheker. And what does God say the reward is for being a person, a man or woman of truth? That God is close to you. So this proximal idea of the closeness of God to someone who is emet, and therefore, God forbid, when someone is far from God, far from the source of their blessing, how dangerous, how difficult life can become when we feel abandoned by Hashem. So my friends, it is important for us to run from a lie. I remember once I was talking about living a life of emet, and a guy said to me, Rabbi, I don't know what you want me to do. In my business, if you're not lying, you can't make a living. Everyone in the industry, that's all we do. We lie about an offer that's not there. We lie about the amenities. We lie about the exact square footage. We lie about the lowballing or highballing an offer. That's the only way you get the job done. Rabbi, in my business, if you don't lie, I can't make parnasah. And I said, you're in the wrong business. How could you set yourself up in a place where you will become a man who cannot keep his word. My friends, I had a student a long time ago in London. I'll never forget the phone call that I got. I was driving to a wedding. This young kid calls me. He was 17 years old. He said to me, Rabbi, I don't know what to do. He's crying on the phone. What's the matter? He says, Rabbi, I'm 70,000 pounds in debt. 70,000 pounds. You're in high school. Where did he lose the money? He was a poker player. And when he ran out of money, he borrowed that money from the wrong kind of people. And he said, Rabbi, you don't understand. If I don't get the money, they're going to kill me. They'll beat me up. I don't know. I'm terrified. What should I do? Anyway, I said, look, we got to strategize. But the first thing we got to do is we got to learn the lesson here. We got to move away from this. We got to change. And he's like, absolutely, Rabbi. He's like doing teshuvah with me on the phone. It was like psycho. Calls me back a week later. I said, how are things? What happened with them? He's like, Rabbi, don't worry. I'm up 80K. I think that was the last time he called me for advice, by the way. Anyway, he went on to become a very successful poker player. And he's here tonight. No, I'm joking. Joking, come on. He wound up buying himself at the time an Audi R8, right when they came out. He bought his mom her house. Right? Every girl wants a guy who's nice to his mom, right? You know what's interesting? A little while later, he went on a TV program. I don't know the exact name, but there's a version of it here in America. It's like when you go into hiding as a very wealthy man, like you pretend like you're one of the workers, hidden boss or secret boss or hidden millionaire or some version of those words mixed together. And he pretended he was in this poor community working alongside the people. And finally, at the end, the big reveal, he's given them all gifts, and he's heard about this one's dog who needs a surgery, and that one's kid who needs a surgery, and that one's other kid who needs a dog. Either way, it was amazing. He's helping everybody. And he bursts into tears on this TV show. And this was so interesting. And he said, I got a lot of things from my talent, from my skill. He says, but the biggest thing that I lost in my life was not the money that I lost on some bet. The worst thing that happened to me is that I became a gambler at life. And if I learned how to lie at a table, I knew how to lie to a girl I was dating. I knew how to lie to my parents. I became a person that was so withdrawn, and I couldn't shut it off. I'll tell you one thing. If you lie at work, you're gonna bring that home. These things, they spread in a person's life. And one of my favorite lines that identifies how people are in this world is, how you do anything is how you do everything. So when we talk about midvar sheker tirchak, being truthful people, on the very first level we want to understand this idea that a person should dedicate to themselves that they are a man or woman of truth. Because if it's true in the office, you're a person who tells the truth when they're dating. And when you're telling your truth when you're dating, you're telling your truth to your children. And that idea, that thing that you bring about in your life, it creates a simpler, a more placid, a calm life. You don't need to run around making sure that the lie you told yesterday fits with the lie you need to tell today. So my friends, how does a person build a life of truth? How do you go up to someone and say who you are, live as you are, act as you are? How do you do that? How do you build the courage to never hide, to never lie, to have no secrets? So I want to share with you something that I think is very beautiful. And it's one of these things that happens when you start paying attention to your prayers and your Judaism, etc. You realize deep lessons that are hiding right beneath the surface. Can I give you an example? Just something like that? Just like such a deep lesson that's hiding right there in plain sight. Every morning, every night, what do we say? Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahavta. What do we learn from the sequence of saying Shema and Ve'ahavta? Something so beautiful that you cannot love. Ve'ahavta means and you will love. You cannot love until you're capable of listening. How beautiful is that truth? Let me share with you another example of a beautiful truth that hides right beneath the surface. When we say Shema, listen, O Israel, what do? We cover our eyes. Because in order to listen, a person needs to stop whatever else they are doing and engage completely in hearing the person in front of them. So the idea of covering your eyes while you say Shema is in and of itself a magnificent lesson for how a person listens to somebody in this life. We're sitting there on our phones, sitting there watching the game. By the way, watching 4 different games at the same time. We're so distracted, we have distractions from our distractions. So you want to listen, close your eyes. Someone told me they were having trouble in their relationship between them and their parents. I said, well, how often do you speak to your parents? She says, I try and call dad, mother, my father. I said, I want you to try one thing. Tell me if it works. When you next call your mother, same amount. Don't call her more. Call her the same amount. But when you're talking to your mom, close your eyes. Change the relationship overnight. Why? Shema ve'ahavta. When we truly hear people, we learn to love them. But my friends, how can someone hear you if you're so busy crafting a fake version of you? The answer to this conundrum is actually beautifully simple. At the end of the Shema, we say, Adonai Elohechem Emet. Hashem, your God, is true. But in the evening prayer that we'll say after we finish tonight, we say Hashem Elokechem Emet. And that's followed immediately, without any break, with the word Ve'emunah. Tonight's topic will revolve around these 2 words. The connection of emet, of truthfulness in one's life, in their job, in their dating, in their own indication and vision of self. Emet, you want to have truth. What do you need in order to be able to have truth? You know that famous line, you want the truth? You can't handle. Why can't you handle the truth? Because the only way to live a life of emet is to live a life of emunah. If you think lying is getting you the sale, what are you going to do? You're going to lie. If you think lying is going to get you the girl, what are you going to do? You're going to lie. But if your emunah told you that God doesn't need your help, He could give you whatever He wants to give you, whenever He wants to give it to you, do you think He needs your lie to help you? Or do you think your lie is going to push Him away? Midvar sheker tirchak. You know why? Because every one of us wants to be close to God, wants to be close to His answers, wants to be close to His blessings. And when we lie, we push those blessings away. And if you've ever felt that you're kind of missing a couple blessings in your life, and you're praying harder, you're paying attention to the beginning of the sentence, Karov Adonai lechol korav, but you're ignoring the end. L'chol asher yikru be'emet. Fix the emet, fix the distance. Fix the distance, fix the blessings. My friends, I want to share with you an example of this idea. The Zohar writes, Al Pi Kabbalah, he quotes a pasuk. The Zohar is in Balak. Rev Chizkiah Patach. He gives a whole pasuk. I'm not going to share with you the pasuk. It's only going to distract us. It uses language that's very repetitive. And the Zohar writes, Emunah b'sha'ata de'ithabar be'emet. When emunah connects with truth, lechedva, the result is joy or happiness. You cannot have, says Rav Nachman of Breslov, you cannot have emunah without emet, and you cannot have emet without emunah. Faith and truth are one and the same. And I thought of a brilliant, perhaps, phrase that will help us remember this concept. Truth is to see the world as it is. Faith is to see the world as it could be. These two pillars are so necessary in our lives. You have people who only want to see the world as it could be. What's destroying America right now is people who are seeing America as it could be. They're seeing perhaps the best version of people. They're seeing the idea that if you just help criminals, even get them out of jail, give them money, give them a credit card, you know what's going to happen? They're obviously going to fix their ways and become better people. That's what they think. They only see the best that it could be, but they're not seeing emet. And then you have some people who live with a version of emet, of truth in their life, but it's so damaging, it's so scary that they can't have any hope. So the beautiful marriage of truth and faith is what we're after tonight. There was a man who was 35 years old, and he came to a great rabbi whose name was Rav Zilberstein, and he said, listen, they're suggesting an amazing girl for me, but I'm nervous. What are you nervous about? I'm nervous because she's only 26 years old, and I'm 35. And I'm nervous she's going to ask me how old I am, and then right away, before we even get a chance, it will be knocked off the table. Am I allowed to tell this girl that I'm younger or I'm 30? Am I allowed to do that? Anyway, the rabbi says, listen, I don't think so, but if you want, I could ask one of the great rabbis, Rav Steinman. He asked the rabbi, and the rabbi said, why would you lie? If this is for you, then it will be for you no matter what. And if it's not for you, it will not be for you no matter what. Not only that, what will you have done if you began your entire relationship on a lie? Anyway, the guy says, you know something, you're right. Anyway, he tells her, she asks him first question, they're chatting on the phone. She says, oh, by the way, how old are you? He bites down hard and he says, 35. And she says, oh, okay. Anyway, they go out. They wind up getting married. And on their wedding night, she says to him, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be here with you. I can't believe we finally got here. So special. She said, there's something I wanted to wait to tell you until we were married. He says, what's that? She says, before we went out, I actually knew how old you were. But I just wanted to see. My question for you in asking you how old you were was not to see how old you were. I already knew. I told myself, if you told me the truth, then I'd give you a chance. How often is life like this? Where we think that telling a lie or living a lie or pretending that we're someone that we're not is going to get us something. And actually, how do you know if they wanted to know if you were young or honest? How do you know if that girl wants to know if you have money or ambition? How do you know if that guy wants to know if you're kind or a doormat? You don't know. Truth is the only answer that works in this life. And it's so hard because it's not just the things that we say that have to be true. Midvar sheker, the word divar means a word, but the word davar also means a thing. Stay away from a false thing. My friends, our entire world today revolves around falsehood. A misrepresentation of self, fueled by social media pictures and posts. Rabbi Sachs used to say that our world is a world which is called a post-truth existence. It doesn't matter anymore if something is true or not. It just matters how you're going to spin it. I live on the Upper East Side. There's a lot of women that do a lot of surgery. It's a world of sheker. Everything's dyed, everything's stretched. Sometimes I say big chidushim. I can't tell if they're surprised. Either way, this is the world that we live in. Now, by the way, it's not just the surgery or the fake picture. When we're maxing out our credit cards, what are we doing? We want to show that suit, those shoes, that car, that bag, all of these things. What is it? It's a misrepresentation of self. It's not living within your means. I remember this line because it made such an impression on me. We spend money we don't have on things we don't want to impress people we don't like. What if there was another way? And tonight, I want to challenge us to come with another way. To own the people that we are. To own our mistakes. To own the honesty, the truth, the transparency of who we are. And you know what? Those ugly bumps, those things, those white hairs, don't change them. Don't hide them. Wear them with pride. I want to, if I can, I want to drive these points home to you. What it looks like to live a life of emet ve'emunah. There was a girl. Her name was Rivka Stern. She lived in Germany. And one day the Nazis came marching into her town. She went running as fast as she could to try and find someplace to hide. And she went and found a German family that had a farm on the corner of her, on the edge of her town. And she ran and knocked at the door. And this family opens the door. It was an elderly man, Mr. and Mrs. Bieber. They looked at this young girl and they said, "How can we help you?" She said, "I'm Jewish. They're hunting us in the streets. Please take me in." And this woman says, "Take you in? You know how dangerous it is." She says, "I know. I'll be quiet. No one will hear me. I'll never leave the house. No one will know. And I promise you I'll make it worth your while." "How are you going to make it worth my while?" And this girl says, "You know, I was taught by my father. I'm an expert seamstress. Anything you need me to make, dresses, suits, pants, curtains, whatever it is, I can make it, and I can make it beautiful. I will make you a ton of money." They said, "Really? Show us." They bring her upstairs to the attic of the house where this woman had her sewing machine. And she said, she gave us some material, and she made us some beautiful pieces of clothing very quickly. And instantly they saw that this girl was going to be a gold mine. They allowed her to stay upstairs in their attic. Anyway, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Every day like clockwork. Mrs. Bieber would bring up breakfast, lunch, dinner. She never came down. And as she brought these foods up, this girl, Rivka, started to think to herself, I'm sure this food's not kosher, but I don't have any other food. So she started eating not kosher. Other mitzvot she couldn't do. Holidays she couldn't keep. And she started to feel so bad, and she decided, you know what? I'm going to do one mitzvah. I'm going to keep one mitzvah with all my heart, and that will be my mitzvah. That will be the thing that I could say to God that I kept and that nobody broke. And what did she choose? She chose Shabbat. Every day she would work a full day of work, breakfast, 9, 12, 6. Lunch, dinner. And on Thursday night, that first week, she sat up the entire night and worked the whole day and the whole night. And that way she could make up an extra day of work. And on Saturday afternoon, when she came up to give dinner, this girl handed her that day's work. Work that she had done before Shabbat. And she was so happy she'd managed to keep Shabbat. She did it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Everything was going swimmingly, beautiful. Anyway, one day, this woman calls up to her and she says, Rivka, would you do me a favor? I need this dress ironed before I go out tonight. And you have the iron upstairs. Would you mind ironing this dress for me? It's Shabbat. Or like they say in Great Neck, Shabbat. So interesting. Syrians call it Shabbat. I don't know why the vowels kind of sneak in from the communities. Anyway, what happens? She's now caught. The woman is asking her to do something explicitly. She doesn't want to get her mad. This woman is literally saving her life. So she says, what should I do? She decides, you know something? I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell her the truth. She says, Mrs. Bieber, I'm so sorry. I can't. I promised Hashem that I would do one mitzvah, one of my commandments. And that is to not work on Saturday. And today's Saturday. I do anything else you want, whenever else you want it. And the woman says to her, Rivka, what are you talking about? Every Saturday night, I come up with your dinner, 6 p.m., and you hand me the clothes that you made that night. And she says, Mrs. Bieber, I don't hand you the clothes I made that night. Those clothes, I worked all day Thursday, and then worked through the night Thursday to be able to give you that pile and not break my Shabbat. And Mrs. Bieber sees this young girl. Her parents are dead. Her family's dead. Having to play these games in her home. And her maternal instincts were awakened. And she said, really, I wish you would have told me. I feel so bad. Forget about it. From now on, you don't have to work on Thursday night. It's okay. You could just keep your Shabbat. And she says, and you know, if the noise of the house and the music we're playing and if it's bothering you, I have an idea. From now on Friday night, you'll leave the attic and you'll go to the barn. We have a loft in the barn. And for Saturday, you could stay over there, quiet. If you have to pray or do your Jewish things, whatever those things are, you'll do it over there. Rivka says, is that okay with you? She says, yeah, thank you. That Friday night, Rivka goes for the first time, in all the time that she's been at the Biebers, she goes to the barn upstairs in the loft. 9 a.m., breakfast comes. 12 o'clock, no Mrs. Bieber. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. She's freaking out. Where is she? She's never been late before. They were German after all. I always say that. I'm half Syrian and half German, which means that I always come to everything exactly 2 hours late. Anyway, she's late. It's not like her. Something must have happened. It's almost 5 p.m. when Mrs. Bieber runs into the barn and says, are you here? Rivka, are you here? She says, yeah. She says, come down. Now I know, says Mrs. Bieber, that your God is looking after you. Because today, someone must have tipped them off. They came to our house looking for a Jewish girl, threatening not only to kill you, but to kill you and all of our family for hiding you. They tore our house apart. They went upstairs to the attic that you were sitting in every day, every night, for months and months and months. And you weren't there, because for the first time last night, we moved you to the barn. Because you told the truth. You kept your word to your God about keeping your Shabbat. My friends, emet is not a simple matter. It has within it the power to save, to give life or death, and that's why the second two letters of the word emet are mem and taf, which spell the word met. My friends, when a person is not living a truthful life, they're not just saying something that isn't true. they're killing off their real self. The person that you are is amazing. You're not worse because of your mistakes or because of your inadequacies. What makes that guy become the hungry billionaire? The fact that he had nothing. There's a beautiful guy in our community, billionaire. He came to this country, had nothing, walked up and down the streets, tried to get a job in a restaurant. They walked into a restaurant, they said, "Do you speak English?" He said, "No." They said, "Then you can't have the job." He said, in his broken English, "Why do I need to speak English in order to wash your dishes?" The guy started laughing. He gave him the job. That was the start for a fellow whose name is Sam Dom, one of the wealthiest men in our community today. What motivated these people? Not their heights, their lows. But when we deny our lows, what happens? We rob ourselves of the motivation, of the power that those lows give us. You're not telling someone that you came from a challenged background, that you didn't go to the best university. That's what makes you amazing. Why would you hide one of your best qualities? We're encouraged in this world to develop, to bring this fake perfect persona. But that's nobody. And you know something? Eventually, the shiny bit of that presentation, it fades. And we get to see, we feel what's real. My friends, I want to share with you this idea, this emet ve'emunah, what it looks like when a person takes that emet, the emunah, the faith that they have, and they make it true. They bring it to life, in their day to day. Rabbeinu Bachya writes that the Jewish people traveled to 42 destinations in the desert. We read about them last week. And what's amazing about those destinations, says the Shla, is that those journeys, those difficult things that a person needs to go through, it's not something only that the Jews had to do. It's something that all of us need to do. And each name of the place describes one of the mandatory pit stops that we have to make in becoming the men, the women, the fathers, the mothers, the businessmen, the community leaders, the human beings that we were designed to be. We must have those stops. We must visit those places. We have to visit a place called Kivrot Ta'ava, the burial of desire. We have to find that thing that really gets us again and again and again in this life. If it's your ego, if it's your desire, if it's your greed, if it's your anger, your impatience, we need to find that thing, look it right in the eye and bury it in the earth. And until you do that, don't we know that those bad decisions come and haunt us again and again and again? Tonight I want to make you murderers, not of people, but of your biggest weaknesses. And you cannot do that unless you can be truthful and honest with yourself about the fact that you even have one. My friends, I'd like to draw your attention to a beautiful example of this idea. Rabbeinu Bachya writes that in the journeys in the desert, we see the names of these places. And one of the places is called Mara. Mara means bitter. But what's fascinating is that there's another stop that's called Mitka. You know what Mitka means? Matok, sweet. How weird is that? There's one stop in the desert called bitter and one stop called sweet. There's one stop called Charada, which means shaking, trembling in fear. And there's one stop called Har Shafer, a mountain of good. These names, these places, they represent the things that happen to us in our life when we choose to see mitka, when we choose to not be bitter, when we choose to not be victims, when we decide to see ourselves first as we are, accept, love, cherish that as you are person, and then move on and become what you could be. But until you see that, there's no chance of you rising to your potential. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called David and Goliath. I recommend it to every person that I meet who has ADD or ADHD. You guys know what ADHD means, right? You know what it stands for? Attention deficit. Hey, donuts. Yes, every guy that I meet that has ADHD, and there's 1,000 times more now than there were back then, the system told them that we needed to medicate it out of them. That's what the system told them. But did you know that there's a disproportionate number of CEOs, of leaders of countries, of innovators, of creative geniuses that are ADHD? So this thing that society told people was a broken part was actually something to be loved, to be cherished, to be used and channeled. But unless you could learn to love that and present that, what chance do you have of using it in its power, in its beauty, in its glory? My friends, I need to express this in a beautiful example of a couple that I met. I went on a Pesach program and I bumped into this woman. Her name is Chedva. And she said, I've got a story to tell you. Unbelievable. You're never going to believe it. Her name is Chedva. Her husband's name is David. She says to me, when I first got married, my husband was in law school and we had no money. We didn't even have money to eat. And what did we do when we were so devastated, so poor? We had to live on our student loans. Well, it came time, after a few years of marriage, we decided we wanted to have children. And we found out that we could not have children without having IVF. We looked into how expensive IVF is, and it costs almost $10,000 a cycle. We didn't have the money. It's actually more now, by the way. We didn't have the money, so we went to our student law office and we asked them, the student loan office, and we said, is there any way that you could lend us this money? Is there any possible way that? And they said, listen, you only have left for this term $5,000. If you want more, we can give it to you, but only next term you'll have to wait till January. So she took out the $5,000, that's what she's got. She's got another $5,000 coming in January. She's gonna have to wait to start trying to have a baby. And okay, it is what it is. Well, a little while later, she gets a phone call from her brother in Israel. And her brother says to her, he says, this girl, I've been dating her, I really want to marry her, I want to get engaged, I don't have money for a ring. She says, so what are you going to do? He says, well, the girl's grandmother has a diamond, she offered to give it to me. Chedva says to her brother, she says, you can't get married with the diamond that they give you. It doesn't work. He says, well, what should I do? I love her. I want to marry her. I don't have a diamond. By the way, if this itself is not an example of the sheker that we live in, that love is not enough if you don't have a rock that was pulled out of the earth. It's so amazing the things that we've trained ourselves to believe. Anyway, it is what it is. She says, I have $5,000 here. I could lend it to you, but you need to promise me that you'll give it back to me in January. He doesn't know why she has $5,000. They don't have a lot of money, but nobody knows why, because they hadn't told anybody that they needed this IVF. They didn't want the questions. They didn't want the pressure. So they didn't tell even their family. Almost nobody knew. They knew they were trying to have kids. They didn't know they were trying, that they didn't have, they needed IVF. Anyway, she gets a ring. She gets the diamond. She gets a great deal because she's Jewish. She knows somebody. Everybody knows someone who knows somebody, right? And whenever someone tells me, do you know anyone? I'm like, are you even Jewish? Okay, fine. Yes? So the guy says, she arranges it, she gets the thing, they go to Miami for the engagement. She sees her sister-in-law, future, with the ring on her finger. And she said to me, I looked at the ring and I thought to myself, what have I done? There goes my baby. What's going to happen if he can't give it to me? It's an anxious time. But she thought, listen, I have to do it. I had to do it for my brother. Hashem will figure it out. The boy is so excited by the fact that he's got this ring. He tells his sister, I'm going to go to the kotel. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to run to the kotel. I'm going to pray. He didn't know they were trying, like I said, but he knew they wanted to have a family. So he says, I'm going to go pray that you guys should get pregnant. And he goes and he prays with all of his heart. La, la, la. Okay. They're flying back from Miami, back to their home, and they land back in their home in North Carolina. And as they land in North Carolina, where he's studying, in Duke University, that night, 24 hours from her looking at that ring that she paid for, that she arranged, so her brother would be able to get married. There's a phone call, and he says, hi, is this Chedva bro? She says, it is. She said, the voice on the other end of the line says, my name is Rabbi so-and-so, I'm calling you from Bonei Olam. She says, what's that? It's a while ago. Nobody knew what it was. He said it's an organization that helps people with funding if they need to have IVF or problems or issues with fertility. She says, okay, well, what do you want from me? He says, well, an anonymous donor gave $10,000 and he earmarked it only for you. She says, well, I'm not going to take it unless I know who it is. The guy says, okay, then you're not going to have it. They don't want you. I'm going to keep the secret. She's threatening. She's this. She can't get him to budge. He says, you just tell me where to send it, and I'm going to send it. He sends wires, $10,000 to Duke University Clinic. And $10,000 goes into the bank account, and she's ready to be able to get her first cycle. Well, by January, end of January, her brother brought every dollar, every $5,000 back, every bit of it. And you know what happens? She says to her brother, keep it. Because by mid-January, she was already pregnant on that first cycle without even borrowing the rest of the money by someone out of nowhere. She didn't even know who it was. She thought maybe it was her in-laws. They found out about the ring somehow. Maybe they sponsored it. I don't know. But she's really happy. She realized that when you have emunah, when you give to someone else, when you need, when you live that way, when emunah for you is not a religious thing, it's a truth in your life. Like gravity is a truth, when that's what faith is in your life. You live a life that is purely open and honest. You never need to manufacture anything, massage facts, take care of things. God takes care of them for you. Unbelievable. But what she did not know until a little bit later, after her daughter was born, Miriam, on August 29th, 2004, what she did not know until a few months after her daughter was born was that the anonymous donor was one of her dear friends. A friend who had suffered 5 cycles and 5 miscarriages, and then found out that Chedva also needed to get this treatment. So she sponsored her friend, and on that cycle that she sponsored Chedva, she got pregnant. And those 2 girls are now the closest of friends, born 8 months apart. Emet ve'emunah. Faith is powerful, but faith is only as powerful as a person. Faith is only, I can't even see who it is, I just see shadows, by the way. Faith is only as powerful as a person is able to make it emet. My friends, I want to share with you a beautiful idea. The Talmud says to us in Shabbat on page 31. And you know, when we were in school, what would you have given to have the test before the test came out? Right? That was gold, right? I mean, it also got you in prison, but it was gold if you could get to prison, right? Amazing. The Talmud tells us what the test questions are when we get to Shamayim. Bam! Life hack! We already have the questions. Gemara, Shabbat, 31a, bottom of the page. Amar Rava. Easy, right? Easy to prepare if you know the questions. The Talmud says the first thing is, Nasata v'natata be'emunah. Did you work with emunah? Were you faithful? Were you honest? Were you truthful in business? The second question is, did you set aside time for Torah? Now, our rabbis point out there's about 4 but 5 more questions after that in the Gemara. But our rabbis point out, Tosafot asks the question. Tosafot says, doesn't the Gemara say that the first question's about Torah? How could the Gemara over here say that the first question's about business? Did you deal honestly with somebody? Now the Ben Ish Chai's answer, which I'm not going to say to you, but I'm going to use a little bit. He says that first question is not a question about business. It's a question about Torah too. Because every one of you has met a guy that looks very religious, but doesn't actually play the game. They learn a lot of Torah, they wear the right clothes, but they have the worst midot. You ever meet someone like that? Yeah, you ever hear these things that people say sometimes? He's wearing the clothes, but he didn't change the man. So the first question is also a question about Torah. Did you give and take with emunah? Because when a person has faith, they don't need to rip anybody off. They can be honest and open. They could show themselves, all of themselves, and never be worried. And know that the right one will actually love them for it. My friends, I'd like to perhaps wrap up with this last idea. Because to me, I think that it really communicates everything that we've said, really in the most unbelievable detail. If the Talmud is telling us that this is one of the questions, then I think that you and I have to figure out how we're going to answer that question now. And let me tell you what I mean. Sorry in advance. We sing Hatikva. We send money. We do a lot of things. But do we really care? Nasata v'natata be'emunah. Someone comes to you and they're collecting tzedakah and you give them money. But do you give a damn about their life? Do you actually care? One of the most shocking things that people don't realize about Judaism is that it's not supposed to change the things that you do. It's supposed to change the person you are. You know when people get a little bit more religious and someone says, Rabbi, I don't know, they're like, I don't even recognize them. It's like not the same person. I'm like, success? Now, if it's not the same person, because now they're nasty, now they're judgmental, now they're difficult to work with, now they're making everyone's life miserable, right? That's not what we mean. But if you haven't changed as you got more connected, if you haven't become kinder, more sensitive, more attentive, if you haven't become more real, more authentic, then we're doing it wrong. My friends, Chazak started in London because there was one boy who came up to me and made one comment. It was on Yom Kippur, and we did a whole session, and we did all the prayers in English. And all of these kids that came to the session who had never connected to praying in their life were actually sitting there and engaged. They were sitting there listening. When I talked about responsibility, or hurting someone's feelings, or betraying a friendship, you could see that their eyes would go up and they'd think, oh my God, who did I betray? Which person could I have been more kind to? They were engaged in the part like in a real way. And this kid comes up to me at the end and he says, Rabbi, if you were the rabbi of our synagogue, I would come every week. And it broke my heart because he was trying to make me feel good. But I felt terrible because all it would take for this guy to connect to Judaism was to meet a rabbi that could talk in his language. And I have to say, what you guys have done here, to be able to put on something like this and have people come of all different backgrounds. Like when we first came, I walked in the side room and there's some guy sitting there by himself praying mincha. I was like, dude, respect. By himself in the corner. Beautiful. Are there people here who don't pray every day? For sure. Are there people here who don't do Shabbat? For sure. But the most beautiful thing about a Chazak event is that it goes back to that first moment where a guy who comes only once a year on Yom Kippur says, you know something? In my heart, I want more. I want to connect with my brothers and sisters in Israel more. I want to feel it. I don't, but I want to. Maybe I'm not interested in Shabbat. Maybe I'm not interested, but I want to raise Jewish kids. I learned for the first time in my life that out there, it matters to them if we're Jewish. They care. They think of us differently. Why wouldn't I think of myself differently? Judaism, real Judaism, is when these buttons are being pushed in our hearts. And we say to ourselves, I want more. You know what more means? More means killing that picture that you were about to put up that was just fake. Is that what we need? More fake? More perfectly made photos with perfectly airbrushed out pimple, and the sky wasn't beautiful enough. You needed to filter it so it had 17 more colors than it actually had. I always feel like God in heaven is like, I made the sky, I shown it beautifully, and this is what you're doing to my sky. Like, was it not nice enough for you? Catch yourself. Use opportunities to present the real you. I'll tell you, I don't know if Rabbi Hadjio feels the same way. You'll tell me afterwards. I always feel that a rabbi is in many ways a very lonely person. Do you know what I mean, Rabbi? Like, you know, like Rabbi Farhi. And if you watch the videos online, you're like, you know, Instagram Rabbi Farhi clip. But you don't know me, right? You know how beautiful it is to have someone just see you for who you are, for not for what you give, not for what you do? It's beautiful. And it's rare as a rabbi because people don't ever see that. But that's true for everyone in this room. What if people didn't see you for what you could give them, but for who you were? That is the most beautiful thing in the world, and that's really all of Judaism is trying to create, to release this unbelievable human being that is inside of you. A beautiful person, an honorable person, a powerful person. Someone said to me once, Rabbi, there's no opportunities for me to do stuff in this community. It wasn't talking about Great Neck. He was talking about Deal. You know, all these, you want to do something, all these older people, they're the ones running the shuls. I was like, why are you asking for their permission? Well, don't ask anyone's permission to be great. Go out and grab it. Go out and do it. How many of our jobs that we keep, that we hold, we're holding from fear because we're scared and we just want to be safe and we want to know that we'll get a paycheck at the end of the week. But there's so much more in there. Have you not ever felt that? That no one has really seen like Optimus Prime me? Has no one ever felt that? Am I just crazy? Well, tonight is an invitation. This is your sign asking you to step up. I've heard story after story after story in Israel of kids exactly your ages who stepped on a grenade, dove on it for their friends, who ran at 50 terrorists in Be'eri or in Nir Oz. You know what makes heroes? Difficult opportunities, challenges. Mara makes mitka. Guys, there's so much power in this room. There's so much energy in this room. I want to bless you all that all of that should come to the forefront. I want to bless you that when people look at you, They see the best version of you that's sitting there underneath. I want to bless you that you have enough power and courage inside of yourself to show that to the world, to take risks on yourself. Everybody's thinking of investing their money, but your biggest investment is yourself. And please God, when you do that, you'll be zocheh to become an unstoppable force in this world. Thank you so much for listening.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I love you. A big thank you to Rabbi Farhi for his time, his love, his dedication. To Shane Griffin, to Rabbi Reuben Abraham, who could not be with us this evening, but his heart and soul is with us. Friends, before you get back to the food and the drink and having a good time at the summer soiree, just one quick request. We want to plan many more such programs, many more such events. We need your friendship, we need your help, we need your sponsorship. If you want to be able to be part of this tremendous mitzvah for the many more programs we have planned as Rat Hashem for the upcoming year, please see me, please see Shayna. You can WhatsApp me if you're embarrassed. I don't care. Come up to me. I'd love to hear from you. Wishing you all, may Bezrat Hashem, may we see Mashiach before Tisha B'Av, Bezrat Hashem. We have a little bit more time. If we do see Tisha B'Av, may it be our last Tisha B'Av in Galut. And Hashem bless you all with much aslacha. Thank you for being part of this amazing event. Bracha v'aslacha. Chazak, chazak, chazak. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. This is beautiful, beautiful event. Beautiful. Hi. Yeah, after, yeah. We should announce it. Thank you, guys. Lazavia Matzbais. Thank you. Good to see you guys. Wow. Baruch Hashem. Nice turnout. Baruch Hashem. We want to do a lot more. We had to turn a lot of people away. Baruch Hashem.
This is probably one of your most successful.
Baruch Hashem. Yeah. Actually, we've done other ones with him. We had 700 people. Baruch Hashem.
Wow.
He brings a big crowd. Let me close up. Give me 1 minute.